In this lesson, we're going to take a look at loops. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up our script and let's get started with creating loops. Now, loops are going to be really important to us because they allow us to execute a line of code based on conditions, and it will continue to execute that block of code until the condition is met. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first type of loop, and this is going to be a for loop. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new function. So let's go down below our display message function and let's type in void, and then we'll type in enemy search. Okay. And so what we'll be able to do here is we'll be able to use a for loop, and it's going to iterate through, and it's kind of like it's just searching for all of the enemies within the immediate area, and it's going to check their distances from one another. So to do this, let's go ahead and start out with using the keyword for. Okay. Now, whenever you use a for loop, you need to open and close parentheses, and then inside of this you have three different elements. The first element is going to be the variable that is going to be iterated. So in this case, we're going to say int I, which is just a generic variable for an iterative variable. And we're going to set it equal to 0. And then we're going to use a semicolon, and we're going to create the second element. The second element is going to be the condition. And so we're going to say we want it to loop until I is less than 5. Okay? Or until I is greater than 5. So we're saying here, if I is less than 5, go ahead and execute this code. And so it'll loop through that until we've counted up to 5. Okay, so how do we get I to equal 5? Well, we need our third element. And so what this is actually going to do is it's going to increment, so we'll use plus plus. Alright, so this is the initialization of the variable, this is the condition, and then this is the iteration. Now below this, we're going to give it the instructions on what it's supposed to do during this loop. So what we want to do is we want to create a variable that is going to check the enemy distance. Now for this, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put this variable right up here at the top, okay, with the rest of our variables, and I'm just going to call this public, and then we'll say int, and then we'll say enemy distance. Okay, I can go ahead and set that equal to 0 if I wanted to, or I could just leave it blank. We'll go ahead and leave it at 0. Now back in our for loop, let's go ahead and say enemy distance. Notice that it pops up there, equals, and we're going to say random dot range. And so we've already used this, and we're going to pick a number between 1 and 10. And that's all we need for that. So each time it's going to get a number. Okay, and so then we're going to check to see what that enemy distance is. And so we're going to say if enemy distance is greater than or equal to 8, we want it to do this. So now we're looking at a range of numbers. And so if it's 8 or above, we're going to print out a message, and we're going to say an enemy is way over there. Okay, so we're just kind of pointing out that the enemy is still far away. Now we're going to do another if statement, okay, and we're going to check to see if the number is less than 8. But here we're actually going to put it between the number 4 and number 7. And so we need to use a logical operator and a comparison operator to get this logic. So we're going to say enemy distance is greater than or equal to 4. And, okay, and enemy distance, and let's try that one more time, enemy distance, for some reason it's not finding that variable, and that's okay, we're just going to continue to type this out, and is less than or equal to 7. Let's close those parentheses there, and then we're going to come down below that. We're going to open and close curly brackets, and then let's go ahead and tell it what we want to do if this condition is met. In this case, we're going to print, and the message that we'll print is that enemy, is getting close. Okay, and then we'll do one final if statement, and actually let's go ahead and just copy and paste this right here. We're going to hit Control-C, and then we'll Control-V on this one, and we're going to say if enemy distance is less than 4, okay, meaning 3 or below, then we want to say a message. We want to say this enemy has terrible breath, okay, meaning that it's really close. All right, so there we have our for loop. Now, one thing that I want you to be very careful of is whenever you start using loops, it is possible to get stuck into an infinite loop. And so it would be my suggestion to go ahead and save your scenes before you go ahead and execute this code, so that way you don't lose anything, because it will crash Unity if you have an error in your loop. But with a for loop, just make sure you have those 3 elements. So let's hit Control-S to save this, and then let's go into Unity, and then you'll notice here we have enemy distance, and if I go ahead and I hit play on this, and then we hit the space bar, you'll notice it's looking for the weapon, but remember we didn't call that function, so let's go ahead and call that up here. We're going to go ahead and say enemy search. Okay, so call that function. Hit Control-S to save that. Then let's go back to Unity. Let's hit play. Then we'll hit the space bar, and you'll notice here that it's looking through, and it says we didn't find anything as far as our weapons go, but we do have these messages, and I want you to count how many messages we got. We got 3 messages here and 2 messages here. That counts up to 5. Remember, our iteration condition was if it's less than 5, then we want it to go ahead and continue looping through. But it's no longer less than 5. It equaled 5, and so it stopped. Okay, perfect. So now that we know how to do a for loop, in the next lesson what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at using arrays, and we'll get into that next.